Well, joining me over the phone right now is Phil Steele. And Phil, first thing I got to ask is how difficult was it for you to put this year's college football preview together with everything just constantly changing?
Yeah, it was difficult, and two things really changed this year. The first thing was when we put the magazine out. We normally send it to the press at the end of May, but when the state of Ohio shut us down for 2 months, it was just me toiling away in an empty office. I knew we weren't going to be able to put it out by the end of May, but when they were able to get the staff back, and I started talking to the coaches, talked to 110 of the 130 head coaches, we were able to put it out by July the 8th this year. And then the second thing is distribution. We really limited it this year only to Barnes & Noble and Books A Million as opposed to everywhere where it's been. And we printed about 1/4 the magazines. Now, since the magazine went to the press, which really changes all these schedules and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the MAC and the Mountain West, canceling their seasons or postponing them till the spring. What we've done on the philsteele.com is put up the updated schedules that you can paste over in your magazine. But yeah, it's been a very different off season, Tara.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things I was looking at. You have Arkansas's schedule difficulty ranked at number 6 from the printout that I have. Has that changed since their schedule came out?
Yeah, it probably went all the way up to number 1 with what they added. I mean, bringing in Florida and Georgia and eliminating a couple of smaller teams off the schedule. I can't imagine anybody in the country having a tougher schedule than Arkansas does this year. So I think when I do, I'm still waiting for the schedules to be absolutely finalized. Now, a lot of people are saying, hey, they're finaling, the Sun Belt and things like that, and then they change on a daily basis. Once that happens in the next couple of days, I will update the schedule strength, but got to feel Arkansas is going to be number 1 in that category.
Well, Sam Pittman has come in at Arkansas as the new head coach, a first-year head coach in general as well. What do you think about him?
Well, I'm a member of the Joe Moore Offensive Line Award Committee, and I know those guys think very highly of Sam Pittman. He's done a great job producing offensive lines at Arkansas and at Georgia, so he's doing a fantastic job there. I think he's going to do a good job at Arkansas, but I tell you what, it is a tough year to be a first-year head coach. In the coaches I talked to going over the teams with them, generally experienced head coaches said, hey, no spring practice, no problem. We're prepared, off-season conditioning. But first-year head coaches are like, well, we haven't even seen these guys on the field, Phil. I don't even know too much about them. So I think this is going to be a tough year for most first-year head coaches. And then in Arkansas's case, changing things up, going from smaller, speedier offensive linemen to bigger offensive linemen. And while they've been able to bulk them up, we'll see what happens once they get starting to practice and get towards the season. Usually you'd like to have that spring practice under your belt. But I got to think for all 3 of the first-year head coaches in the SEC West this year, they are definitely going to struggle.
And, I read that you think that Sam Pittman has probably the toughest job right now in the country. Would that still be the same even if the season had gone on as normal and as planned?
It would have been close, yes, because, as mentioned, you've got the schedule is just amazingly tough. You've got a first-year head coach trying to break in a somewhat inexperienced, making scheme changes both offensively and defensively. It is going to be tough. I think another coach that comes close, though, is at Mississippi State and Mike Leach. Mike Leach is making a drastic change on offense. Mississippi State's been a run-oriented team with a running quarterback for all these years. Now they're going to shift to the pure passing offense. His first year at Washington State, he went just 3-9, and now trying to do it without spring practice. They didn't have a single spring practice under their belt. A drastic retooling on offense. We saw how that went at Arkansas year 1 under Chad Morris. Changing from Bielema's schemes to the pass offense. I think Mississippi State's going to struggle this year as well.
Well, there was a lot of positive talk about Arkansas staff once Sam Pittman added Kendall Briles and Barry Odom. What do you think about those 2 guys and what they could bring to the table at Arkansas?
We know Barry Odom could be an outstanding defensive coordinator, and I thought he did a decent job at Missouri as a head coach, but now he's back as a DC, and he did a great job at Memphis, did a great job at Missouri as a defensive coordinator there, and I think that's a really good hire defensively. And as far as Kendall Briles goes, once again, potent offenses almost everywhere he's gone. I think he's stepping into a pretty good situation, but first-year coordinators without spring practice. That makes it a little bit more difficult this first year. I'm bullish on Arkansas for future years. I'm just not so bullish on Arkansas for this year. But the one thing I will point out, Tara, is they do have some talent to work with. I mean, you look at the running backs they've got with Rakeem Boyd leading the way, some talented receivers like Traylon Burks, Felipe Franks stepping in at the quarterback spot. The offensive line did gain a lot of size in the offseason, which Pittman was very happy about. And defensively, there's some players over there. They're going to have to retool that defensive front seven, though, and that's probably going to be the key, because last year Arkansas gave up 5.5 yards per carry, and you don't win too many games giving up 5.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, something you touched on it with the talent portion. People have argued that maybe it was a coaching situation or it was a talent situation over the past couple of years and a lack of talent. But I'm more on the coaching side of it. What do you think has been going on the past couple of years on the Hill?
Yeah, I think anytime you make a drastic change like Arkansas did, it's going to be a 2 to 3 year process. And, when I went over the team last year, with Coach Morris or this first year with Coach Morris, going over the squad with him, he had a bunch of running backs, and he wanted receivers. He wanted more speed at receivers. He didn't have the talent they wanted to work with. He didn't want the big old offensive linemen. He wanted smaller, quicker offensive linemen. So once again, you knew it was going to take him about 2 to 3 years to get there. There was talent, but it wasn't the talent built for his type of offense, and I think that's what put him behind there. Now, defensively, I'm still scratching my head a little bit. I was surprised because Arkansas had a good defensive coordinator coming in, with a big-time reputation, and they had some experience even last year with 6 returning starters. But the defense underachieved in my thought process.
Well, realistic expectations, I think, are what most people are looking towards right now with this Arkansas football team. What do you think that they can do with the schedule that they're presented and the situation they've been in over the past couple of months?
Wow. Open up with Georgia to be an underdog there. I think there's a chance. You look at the Mississippi State game, as mentioned. Mississippi State's retooling their offense completely, and that without the benefit of spring practice. I think there might be a shot in that game against Mississippi State. So if you're looking for possible wins, that would be one. Can't see them winning at Auburn. The Tigers look pretty tough this year. Ole Miss is a game where, if you've watched the games the last couple of years, they've been fairly competitive. Arkansas, in fact, the last time Arkansas had Ole Miss at home, probably should have beat them. They had the big lead, and then all their running backs went down to injury. I think they have a shot in that game, although Ole Miss probably has got the better transition moving in with Kiffin coming in and taking over some talent. But Ole Miss would be a possible win. At Texas A&M, no, I don't see it happening. Tennessee's loaded this year. At Florida, LSU, Alabama, no. So I would say the 3 possibilities this year on the schedule: at Mississippi State, Mississippi at home, and at Missouri. And I think if you're an Arkansas fan and you come out with 2 wins this year, with all the circumstances, lack of spring, first-year head coach, that's not too bad. And I think it could be a point in the right direction. I do not think 5 wins is possible for Arkansas this year.
I think 2 wins, like you said, we'd all be happy over here in Arkansas, that's for sure. But last question for you. Do you think that we will make it through this entire college football season? We're going to keep our fingers crossed that it does happen.
I'm crossing my fingers right now, Tara. So I'm going to have to be optimistic on this and say yes. And if we do, I think it will be a true football season. Even without the Big Ten and the Pac-12, I think we'll crown a true champion at the end of the year if we make it through the whole season. And, if you look at the AP top 10, only 3 of the 10 teams are not, so that means 7 are. If you go to the back of my magazine and you look at the Heisman watch I have at the back, 8 of the top 10 candidates are all playing football this year. And who wouldn't have voted for 10 SEC games in the same year? So I'm getting pretty excited. If we play football this year and play the whole season, then I'm gonna vote yes on that. We will play the entire season.
I like the positivity there. Phil, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate all of your insight as well.
Great talking to you, Tara. A lot of fun.
Great talking to you as well.